the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership Executive Committee for our Wednesday, April 26th, 1 p.m. meeting. And we'll do our roll call.
All right. Ned Galloway,
Here.
Keith Smith, Emily Dreyfus or Emily Smith, Kim Highland,
Here.
William Parker, Alice Fletcher,
Here.
Alice Raucher, Shayla Washington.
Here.
Awesome. Thank you for committing to be here today. All four of us, so that we can, because we actually have to handle something today that we would have had to call another meeting after forum. Open for public comment. Anyone here want to give public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. And then the consent agenda, our minutes from January 28th and our monthly financial update. Are there any edits, changes, questions about either of those two items? Any remarks from staff that are?
Yeah, I would add that the annual budget column, the last column in the profit and loss statement, still needs to be updated to the recently approved amended FY26 budget that the commission approved in their last month meeting. So that final column will be updated so that the total budget amount matches what is in the TJPDC's budget.
All right, with that, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, that's done. So new business, we have the leadership nominating discussion. This is the primary item for today. So this is the last time we meet before the June full partnership meeting. So the executive committee serves as the nominating committee to the partnership. So we will go to them in June and say, here's who you think the new leadership should be. In addition to leadership, Shayla and Kim, right before you walked in, we're also, I believe, need to make recommendations about who to nominate beyond the leadership. So the partnership will have to replace Keith, and he fulfills the TJPDC commitment role or appointment. So they'll have to be. And I just didn't realize that until a few minutes before you walked in. So the PDC commission will have to figure out who they want to appoint to the partnership. And already you have both Jesse Rutherford and the Louisa she's not on the commission anymore. So Jesse and Michael Payne are already on the partnership as their elected reps from their counties. I don't know if they could serve dual purpose or that would make sense, but we'll have to figure that out. Mike Pruitt, who's on the PDC commission, is now here as the Carter rep. The commission's going to have that conversation, I guess, in the next meeting. So I don't have thoughts on that yet. I just haven't thought about who could represent the commission. Then Albemarle is going to have to replace me because I'll be coming off as an official appointment starting July 1. Since Mike Pruitt is the appointee from Carta, I suspect they will nominate Sally Duncan to come join the partnership. And then we have to figure out, if I'm on the executive committee meeting, who the elected representative would be on the executive committee. Minus all the commissioners I just named who are elected, because they're already, I mean, they could be the elected coming over. But you've got 3 already there. Who represents Fluvanna? Keith?
On this body?
On the partnership.
They have not been.
It's Keith.
No, he represents the PDC.
Oh.
It's somebody who has not been attending.
Oh, right. It's Bree Murray.
It's
Key, but
really
currently
vacant because it was Bree Murray Key, who is no longer a planning commissioner. So we reached out to the clerk of Fluvanna to get a replacement.
Brings appointees the plan.
Which they
So
were.
no recommendation.
Tim Hodge is one of the supervisors of his our board, and he worked with the Guinness Foundation in the UK when he was over there. He has a real passion for housing.
So he can replace whoever the Brewery.
Correct. And we've reached out to the clerk to ask them to make a new appointment for the Fluvanna seat.
Okay,
So that's a motion.
okay. Do you want me to send an email to suggest to the clerk and maybe Kelly Harris and Tim in? I have a board meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
You
I think
certainly
that'd be
could.
valuable.
Yeah,
No, the handles. The my hope. If I could influence things. Would be that. One of the Albemarle reps could be appointed to this committee. One of the two Albemarle electeds. But that's not up for me to decide, but that would be, it's tricky just because of the timing of me going, but that would be my hope. But I don't know how everybody else feels about that. I think Mike Pruitt and Sally Duncan bring a level of expertise and energy that's maybe not been there. So that's part of it. So I'm just throwing that out there. For leadership for the executive committee meeting, Shayla and Alice, I've had conversations with Kim about becoming our new chair, of the executive committee, and hope that she's agreed to do that. And it wasn't like I called her yesterday, she's had time to think about it.
Since I
So it's actually, it's
give me time to turn. Okay.
no, it's been a couple months. This conversation happened a while ago. I'm happy to admit, and thrilled that Kim has accepted that. I've had conversations with a couple of people that are absent today for their reasons, and there's no objection to that. So if there is no objection, Kim's still willing. I think we move as a nominating committee to recommend her to be the chair of the partnership and the executive committee.
I'll second that. It's a great choice.
Awesome, all in favor, please say aye. Alright.
Anybody object?
The vice chair role, I have not done the same focus on. So I'm open to comments or suggestions about who could be the vice chair, and if we don't arrive at that today. The nominating, we could call a small nominating committee, since we serve as a nominating committee, we could call a special meeting of the nominating committee together to just have a virtual to verify it before June. But I'm open to thoughts or ideas. If you look at your list of who the current executive committee is, those would be your options probably for vice chair. The only other option would be you're getting two new appointments to the executive committee. And since we don't know who they are, then you wouldn't, I don't know that we could commit to those folks as vice chair. We may know that by June. So that's why I'm giving us the possibility, but I'm open to thoughts on that.
And I did suggest we have someone who is very procedural oriented, since I've been on. And that's my weakness, so I was just able to.
Well, I did not talk to Will yesterday, but boy, if you don't show up, that's an immediate way to get put into something.
But I'm here as an alternative.
Alter.
So I can say no to that.
And then,
Oh, he is my boss.
Even the more recent.
well, how this could play out for vice chair, frankly, because I didn't have an immediate answer based on the changes. But I think if the summer is not a heavy lift, you do the June full partnership. There's a July executive committee meeting, which we try to make virtual. The partnership doesn't meet again until September. Or is it July or August?
the full partnership is,
Executive.
oh, it's July.
So it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be a horrible thing to allow a vice chair to go unfilled. Until the full partnership meets in June. The other appointments get figured out, new appointments get made to the executive committee, and then the vice chair position gets worked out at the July executive. I don't see why that would be a problem. There's nothing in the bylaws that says you must have an officer. It just says this is what we will. Right?
Does it state in the bylaws what the duties of the vice chair are?
The chair role is defined, the vice chair is probably, I haven't read it, but it's probably generically will fill in the place of the chair. As terms of that, how it's worked is it's always been either Keith or I as chair and or vice chair. So regardless of which one of us has wore the chair hat, we both have tried to be in pre-agenda meetings, which last what, 15-20 minutes. So pre-agendas aren't a heavy lift, 30 minutes at most. We've been doing them on Tuesdays, the first Tuesday of the month, but that's dictated by the people's schedules that are involved. So there's nothing special about that time. Outside of that, if one can't be there, the other has always been ready to fill in. And again, the bigger lifts are running this meeting. Same. One will sub in for the other if needed. And then when the summit comes around, the vice chair has some joint host responsibilities in addition to the chair. But then, your chair, vice chair are the ones that need to be in tune with attendance and doing some of that policing and things like that. If people aren't showing up. All things.
Yeah, just to circle back, the bylaws say about the vice chair. Essentially, there will be a vice chair and the vice chair will perform the duties of the chair in his or her absence.
And the terms we set up now are 2-year terms,
That's correct.
but they're not 1 year's up to 2 and then renewed, they're actual 2-year terms.
It is 2-year terms, although I think it's 2-year terms. Let's see what it says exactly. Yeah, 2-year terms, or until the position is
You're
otherwise
not
filled.
required to do 2. If we need to make a change, then we make a change. But now Keith and I are basically term limited out from the leadership positions, not the department.
Shayla, does that mean you're interested?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm happy to nominate myself.
No.
No, I will not.
I think, I was just gonna add that the alternative in waiting is that there's potential that folks would be coming on to the partnership new, into the executive committee new and serving in a vice chair role. And that doesn't feel like it,
Yeah,
so I love that recommendation.
Yeah, that would be great too. And we can walk in late together.
Yeah.
You gotta get here early, right? I'm not gonna make people show up by
All right. Make them an officer.
That's right.
All right, so I heard a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
So now we've got that figured out.
Well,
The
good.
other piece that I'd like to make as a recommendation, I don't think we need to make any bylaws changes to this. But if we wanted to formalize it, I would suggest that a future new oriented executive committee meeting work that out. Regardless of my capacity leaving the partnership, same with Keith, and Keith reinforced this last week when I saw Keith, are both going to remain available to you as a resource. So you'd be able to have that. I'm thinking, my thought, I ran it by Will Park yesterday, I had a different meeting about something. I've run it by Keith and I've run it by Jesse Rutherford to get his thoughts. But whoever the chair is, a lot of boards have the role immediate past chair. And the point is to be there as a resource for a year for a lot of places to do this where the chair only is chair for 1 year versus 2. So my thoughts are we could maybe formalize or at least make it an unwritten norm that whoever the outgoing chair is remains involved with the partnership as immediate past chair, as a resource to the new chair. But the placement would be in the advisory committee, which isn't an appointed So it's not taking an appointed slot from anybody. And then we've been trying for a year to get that advisory committee concept up off the ground. So my thoughts were, in addition to just being there as needed for the new chair, that the immediate past chair could then take on the effort to get that advisory committee functioning.
That'd be great.
Because it's not a meeting, the advisory committee is not something that I mean, it could, but it's not a meeting commitment, it's none of that, it's really taking on the effort, pull in resources, to pull in ideas and share with both the partnership and the executive committee. And, to me, that's a way to keep staying, when I said I might, stepping down, but not stepping away, that's how I can stay involved with the partnership. But not take a seat away from somebody else to get the new, I just, there needs to be a refresh.
Yes, you get Greg and some other people involved here.
Because I could see that as getting involved, working with Logan to get our resource library, really just dig into that,
Yeah.
which I haven't done. Keith thought it was a good idea. Jesse, I have to give Jesse Rutherford credit. It was his idea to suggest the immediate past chair role. I hadn't even thought of that. As a way to do it. If we formalize it in the bylaws, how I see it is like at some point. Ken, maybe you do the same thing I do, or maybe you just step back in the full partnership. But then you have that added responsibility to kind of take on a role with the advisory committee. Which to me, I think is going to be more an electronic lift than anything else.
Well, it's very functional.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts on that. So any reactions or
I
thoughts?
like that.
Yeah,
I like you. Yeah,
And so any communication between that past president on the advisory committee and what the partnership and the executive committee are working on are just offline communications. There's no formal like liaison.
I
Okay,
mean, I almost feel like it, like. I have pitched the advisory committee to so many advocates in our community. And they just start, I mean, it's like anything else, they're so focused in on what they do. They hear meeting. They hear being involved in something in some other way. Whereas if I sent them an email and I went, hey, I know you've done research on how Fairfax has put together a trust fund. Thinking of like folks in impact. Can you send me that material? And we're gonna upload that in so that the whole partnership can see it. Like that's how, I mean, if somebody's actually asking them and saying, hey, I just need you to provide a link or provide a document. And I'll handle the rest, working with Logan. You'll have to show me how to do, I probably should know how to do it, but I've never actually uploaded anything myself.
Yeah, we can figure it
I
out.
mean, it's just a share file, right?
That's right, it's a SharePoint.
So I think that I'm hoping that that's what then starts to feed in our ideas about who makes the presentations and the quarterly meetings and
Mhm.
that's how that's the day. Like, Sunshine it popped in his head that he had a thing from Chattanooga that built on the National Housing Crisis Task Force. And then it was like, oh, well, he probably never mentions that if we didn't have that presentation. And then that, to me, that's how this stuff comes towards. Other people might be like, well, this could be a good idea. That's that. Just at this, I just don't think we're taking full advantage. So, fair enough. Do you guys, staff wise, if you want to think about it, do you feel like that has to be operationalized anyway? Because I don't think it does. The immediate past chair role, maybe. But
Or you said for the immediate past chair role, you're saying that that's like an actual position on the partnership?
yeah,
So that,
kind
yeah,
of the function that's how it would operate further.
yeah,
The immediate, because I don't want to assume that the immediate past chair is coming off the partnership.
right,
But the immediate past chair's function, like let's say I dropped back to the full partnership, still keeps the immediate past chair function in place for the new chair, but has this added piece that, hey, you're kind of become a lead curator for this advisory committee. That's the part I'm thinking, oh, there could be a way to keep that going, so it's not on staff, and it's also not on the leadership here, because they're focused on what the work is of the whole. So I don't know, maybe brainstorm that and
okay.
we could think about it.
As a follow-up question, just to make sure I completely understand, would it be appropriate to add into the bylaws an additional person on the partnership? And the role is immediate past chair. So they are actually a member of the partnership, but they're serving in that liaison position between
That's
the
perfect.
advisory and the
I mean, I'm
partnership.
open to all suggestions.
Okay, so we should think through some options.
Cause I mean, it could totally be that an immediate past chair is still on the executive, like. You know what I mean, we decide, okay, I've done my 2 years, Alice becomes the new chair. And you're staying on though, it's not assumed that you, like, a lot of boards that have immediate past chair, the chair's done. They're still in that official position, but they're gonna roll off after they finish that year. So I don't wanna set it up where the chair is rolling off, it's just I wanna set up the responsibility. Of being an asset and help the new chair and the advisory stuff, so I don't know how to do that, it's kind of squishy.
Yeah, we can work on that.
Oh, well, thank you for that, that's good. Feel good about that. And you may want to, when would our next free agenda be? May or June?
May,
And that's May.
I'm not entirely sure, but I can,
7th, 8th,
yeah, whatever that Tuesday is.
The 12th.
I was way off. Wait, it would be
Not
the
bad.
5th then. First Tuesday, actually second Tuesday?
Second
Second.
Tuesday.
No, it's a second Tuesday.
Yeah, it's Tuesday the 12th.
If you had that, what time, usually 10:30?
Yes,
Yep,
Is it remote?
yep.
yes.
Okay, so go to 11.
Always work, never keep pre-agenda first.
Okay,
Is that, like I said.
it's half an hour enough time, I've got 11 month.
I don't know that they usually
They're
go
usually
that long, but
15, 20.
Okay. Well, for our first one, though, we might,
I would invite you both to attend that if you can.
Yeah, I can.
okay.
yeah, I'll send y'all an invite to that somehow.
And then that'll just be a easy, see what we do and see how it goes, kind of thing,
Okay.
before you get thrown in.
And it's the pre-meeting
Pre-agenda.
region.
And it's, the function is to set the agenda for the coming meetings. So we'll talk about, at that one, we'll talk about the June full partnership meeting. And we'll talk about, that's what we'll talk about.
Yeah, there'll be another one, I guess, in June before the full partnership, and we can talk about the executive committee then potentially.
And we already have our program, for lack of a better word, set up for the June meeting.
Yes,
So are we set up for September or do we still need?
I think we're working on September
But
still.
we have somebody in mind.
Yes,
Okay, so we've got thoughts. So really, the brainstorming needs to be for the December meeting.
or we could do a little bit of both, but
Well, just since I'm on that topic. A couple of years ago, we had, as the, thinking locally, we had Sally when she was the delegate.
yeah,
Do kind of a legislative preview focused on housing.
an interesting
So
idea.
we might be able to pull in
David.
Katrina, Amy, and David, somebody to do a,
Get
I
David to do
mean, you might want to think about putting in a, because there's some housing changes happening at the state level starting July 1. But that needs to be reviewed at some point here. For the full partnership, I would imagine most of the people know about it, but
So for the September partnership meeting, you're saying full partnership meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and probably run it by the executive committee so they know what it is. The summer meeting.
yeah, I mean, I wonder if we, unless you want someone outside our organization to do that, but David, I think.
It's just, you know, it's fast.
Yeah, I'm sure David, we spoke about doing that earlier this year anyway, so I'm sure he would be happy to do that.
The beauty of the December meeting, I mean, by that point, they'll have their bills submitted. But it's more, what we did with Sally that time, I don't know if you all were here for that, but she basically gave a heads up. It was more about her saying what she was expecting to happen housing wise at the GA, like what she thought was on the horizon. Which I thought was pretty, it's interesting, but. And my ideas for the larger presentations have kind of run its course. I have to give some more thought to what those could be. So I'm glad you guys have got some thought.
We can talk about it too when we meet in the first week.
Sweet. All right.
As a part of that, this is not necessarily on the agenda, but it is related. As we start to look at different language or different ways to formalize through the bylaws, the role of that immediate past chair. Staff have identified a couple other things in those bylaws that still feel squishy, related to term limits, related to number of terms. Would it be okay if we took a stab at some draft language to clean that up a little bit to bring back to you? I think it would help us, particularly for members that are not active. If there is not an end of the term, there's nothing that triggers going back and asking for a new appointment to fill that seat when that person is inactive. So things like that, if we could bring back some suggested language, that would be helpful.
I don't know. Are all 6 of our jurisdictions do their organizational meetings in January? That was the trip point for us. And then the fact that I had another 6 months here, because we kind of had an unspoken rule with our board appointments that if the members of chair or something, that they won't be removed until their chair terms up. Or, you know, sub in and sub out, and that was tricky just being on the misalignment this time.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay,
Is I don't want to read between the lines. Are you suggesting that perhaps we think about a calendar year rather than a fiscal year
if
when
all
we
6
think of those
jurisdictions
terms? Yep.
at the county and the city, if they do their organizational meetings in January, that's when they make all their boards and commission appointments.
Mhm.
So it may just align better for them to make appointments to the housing group. At the same time, the housing group is doing their organization. I mean, I feel the same way at the commission level, but I've just never brought it up.
Sure. And we could have language in there. Right now, it says the first meeting of the fiscal year. It could be the first meeting following the calendar year after the jurisdictions have already done their organizational
I
meetings.
know Louisiana and Nelson do it in January. I know the city does it in January. We do it in January. I just don't know about Louisa and Green.
They're the same, I believe. We'll confirm that. We'll go look it up.
Cool. Budget projection loaded.
Yep, let me share my screen here. I think it's also in the, maybe in the packet, but. Hold on a second. And I'm not the best person to deliver this spiel, but I think I can do it justice.
Can you just blow it up?
Yeah.
Full window.
Ooh, full window. I'm not sure I know how to do that.
Oh, you're good. It's the.
Maybe I can move the
I think
people
that's
off the
visible,
side.
so you're good.
Can you see that?
Yeah. If I can see it, I'm assuming everybody can.
Had to go a little small.
I can still see far away. I just can't see up close.
I'm not sure what there is else to do. I struggle with it.
You're good.
So this is just an outlook for the FY 27 operating budget. So you can see the total revenue there of about 58,000. That's slightly up from the FY 26 year, which was around 53,000. Also in FY 26, we started doing the per capita rate. So that is sort of fleshed out there on the right. The contributions from the localities. That rate is also going to escalate, I believe, year on year. So this is for the partnership looking ahead for, the big things that are going, are going to be continuing through next fiscal year, the summit and the study. State contingency funds are going to be used for those in large part, so that's not really reflected here. And for the study, there's also $4,000 from the previous fiscal year, so that's not reflected here, but that's going towards the study. The $10,000, oh, you can't see that. Let me scroll down. The $10,000 contractual kind of sticks out. And you can see the personnel above, that's, the TJPC staff. The $10,000 is our Vista host site fee. So that's what that is. Yeah, travel, vehicle, and professional development, I would say, are two other significant expenditures. Generally speaking, that's sending us to conferences. Um, things like the governor's housing conference. That's about all I've got. If anyone has any questions, be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions?
I can scroll around here too, but
This is always our biggest constraint, because if we have ideas of things we want to do. Beyond what we have been doing the last 12 months, if we wanted to, like, we've had to raise money to get the consultants in the past. Things like that. We've also had a couple of conversations, I guess it's been over 2 years now since we talked about rates and having. The buy-in, the last consultant study talked about how you could have a buy-in for people if they joined the board, etc. We even have it down to the point where we've got like what a locality contribution could be versus. What nonprofit contribution could be, what a for-profit contribution be, et cetera, et cetera. But. A lot, most of it, as you can see, goes to staff to function. And all the stuff to do the meetings, so to build any capacity to take on. Studies or other types of consultant work. The funding either has to be raised or we have to figure out a new revenue source. To come in, and it's the few times it's come up in the past, for those that if you were there and remember, it's been something we've all kind of tiptoed around and have never really just. Grabbed by the horns and did anything about. It's been what, 4 years since Keith and I went, we went and made presentations to Charlottesville. Greene, Albemarle, and Nelson. About the point and purpose of the partnership. And verified their commitments to what they get and what we're there to do for them for their contributions. Schedules didn't allow us to get to Fluvanna, and I can't remember if Louisa even answered the door, but we might not have done. So those were the two that never got.
Offer.
Huh?
I have to offer.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm just saying that, at some point it's been a while since Keith and I used to call that our dog and pony show, for lack of a better term. But it could be a good time with new leadership to go out. Maybe do another round of that, especially with the summit coming up in spring, et cetera, et cetera.
And we certainly have a lot more visibility, particularly in Louisa County now with our nonprofit. Having construction underway there, so that sort of gives you an entrance, right, with home funds having been used for it, the PDC funds. Virginia Housing has also contributed, so it kind of brings it full circle to the whole point of the RHP is that we're combining these different tools, so they're more interested probably. And just sort of as a side note, like just what's going on there with nonprofits, the county administrator's wife now runs the resource council next door to me, so there's a lot of visibility in the nonprofits there now and the impact. So I think there may be inlet, yeah.
And it would be good. I mean, Keith is in Fluvanna, but it's always an interesting thing with anything related to the PD. The PDC at the commission level has the same issue. Where with the 6 localities, just being mindful that it can appear and seem very Charlottesville focused and centric. So that was why we went out too, was to kind of expand. And we're, people forget that Albemarle's predominantly rural. So our housing is just as much rural housing as it is the urban ring housing that we're doing. Rural. I never feel good about saying that.
I say it the same way.
Rural.
If you talk real slow, it's easier.
Yeah, we didn't call it rural in West Virginia. We used other words.
So isn't there a conference next year,
Next March, yeah.
next March?
Which I think we're gonna get to.
Oh, and so is that a separate budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought about that too, that I'm saving until we get to that point. Money thoughts. Cool, alright. Then we will move to the Vista update, Emily.
Yes, So as you may know, we have a webinar series going on right now. We had our first event a few weeks ago. It was with Fabrizio Fazzulo from Virginia Housing. We talked about housing policy updates, what's going on federal level, state levels. Our next one, this is sneak peek because we haven't started advertising it yet, but our next one will be on May 12th. It's focused on housing and the justice system, so barriers that formerly incarcerated people face in this area. We're gonna have a few nonprofit people to speak on that, talk about reentry housing in the area. So look out for that. Kind of within the next week or two, we'll send out registration information.
I just spoke on a panel about that.
And you said May 12th.
May 12th at 1 p.m.
Thank you. Great, and then we have the PDC staff updates. Any staff updates?
I think that was, yeah, mainly for the study / summit, if Laura Jean, we wanted to add anything there. With your
Yeah, I'll
quick
put
overview.
the study here, just so everyone knows, so we're a year into a 2-year process, we are getting the initial drafts. You should be getting yours soon, Kim as well, of the technical needs assessment report from VCHR, Virginia Center for Housing Research. So at the moment, what we're doing is, the data is final, the analysis is very strong, but we're having local eyes just take one last look at it. And give any feedback or prioritization, and we're talking about kind of how we're organizing it. A handful of folks have asked me just for initial versions to look at and pull data from, for instance, Nelson working on their rezoning, planning and things like that. So it is available in a very preliminary form to localities at this point, but it's really not ready yet for broader consumption. And then the piece that we're working on right now is partnering with each locality who's participating in developing strategies, which is most of the localities. And that will be an iterative process that will take place over the next 6 months. And so those will all get incorporated and they will shape how it is structured in the end. So that's part of why it's such a long process to go from having the solid data to the final product. Because we're trying to be really strategic about taking those strategies and showing where the data supports them. So just so everyone knows where we are with that. And then, yeah, the summit, which we are anticipating would be next March. I mean, one big thing I would just say is, Ned had a really good point that we should be working on increasing the suggested sponsorship level. So I'm working on a document for you on that, as promised. We will definitely need to be asking all of the RHP leaders to be just engaging with us in this process of how do we engage sponsors, how do we make sure that this is covered and potentially even can help fund the RHP in the coming year. So that is going to be a conversation we'll be having a lot within the next few months.
I think we've always approached the summit and the fundraising for the summit as a way to just cover the cost of the summit. But I think it should create revenue for us. It seems to be a value, people respond well and react well to it from what I've heard, and that's not me just going by anecdotal, that's me asking the others who do the surveying during the event what I see. So I think we have an opportunity this next round to get a couple of larger sponsors that maybe haven't participated in the past. But I know that some of our folks that help spearhead fundraising, I know Will's been involved, Jesse's involved, Keith has been involved. So I would imagine, I haven't talked to Keith, but I can't imagine Keith wouldn't still help in that in some way to help facilitate some of that. But the executive committee has to take on the responsibility of making sure the fundraising happens. I've never personally raised any money for it. So it's a matter of making sure there are some that are doing it and how are they doing it. I'm going get a little more engaged myself for this next pass. Just because I've got a couple leads, so see how it goes. But if we cover the cost of it, which is like 120, something like that, 110.
It was less than that, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was more like 85,000.
And that included staff time.
Yes.
So you think 100 grand, but if you raised 120. And it costs 100, then that's 20 grand that could go to a housing study, and it's not like we would be tricking people, we'd tell them that. They not only are you sponsoring the summit. But then any dollars that go past covering the cost of this will go to. And then by that point, we would probably have some initiatives or something that the executive committee might be interested in working on that we could explicitly say to people. See how it goes, because that could be interesting. And help solve some of the revenue issues. Cool. Thoughts, questions? All right.
I mean, my only comment is I think people donate and sponsor things not with the expectation that it's gonna break even. Meaning like.
They know it's going, it could be a revenue.
Exactly. Yeah,
Accurate.
yeah, and especially since it's a nonprofit organization, they have no problem with being more open and earmarked. Right, because then sometimes sponsors come back and say, hey, what'd you do with my money? If you say it's gonna go, rather than just fundraising to support the summit and the organization. Only because I've done a ton of fundraising.
Yeah, it muddies the water, I think.
Yeah.
People think, oh, well, you don't need my money if you get so much that you're gonna use it for other things.
Oh, that's a counter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think what I'm hearing you saying, Alice, is that we're really selling the work of the RHP in general.
Yes,
Is that right?
exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yes, and all the good that it's done collectively and what it could do if we raised more money. Rather than an earmark.
I mean, I'm not opposed to doing something study sponsored by. If it got to that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we want to be able to do what is still when we approach somebody, say, well, if you sponsor at this level. Because for them, it's. I mean, yes, they're supporting the effort, they think it's worthwhile and of value, but it's also advertising, it goes to their marketing budgets usually. So. You gotta be able to deliver something on that behalf to call out the fact that they're a sponsor. And our top level, what did you tell me it was 10?
Last time, I think it has, all of the 3 previous ones have been 15,000. It was always Virginia Housing, which was really a grant, but they became the top
Yeah,
sponsor. And then, yeah, I think last time the second one was 10,000.
So I've asked Lori Jean to bulk that up. And see if we can get some larger sponsors in addition to what has been the norm, and I think that could create capacity in some good way. But we have to be able to say to them, if you give it this level, this is what this means for you. And that's the part I don't really know yet. We're working on that. Cool. So we're at the round table. What time is it? Remember?
It is 1:51.
No, I'm on time. Because we backed this up to an hour today.
Yep.
Yeah, what's going on, and just move down the table here.
We are trying to get our, I forgot to touch base with Logan. We are so close to getting our COs for our first units, and we ordered our first 3 2-bedroom houses, so. Our construction manager, Brooke Randall. So I'm pulling double duty on my arm and double. And here's kind of fun.
Well, I think I'm gonna give the UVA and the local update, which is our company is supported North Fork community building, so we're our approach with them, we're building all the affordable units first. So there will be can't remember how many. But it's 126 affordable units coming in immediately. And then the phase project has the remaining affordable units coming in phase two. And so that the last phase is the market rate. So we're delivering close to 300 affordable units in the first 2 to 3 years. Yeah, so it'll be a total of 500 units there with a community center. And so we're super excited that a local company where it was awarded the project, and I think UVA is excited that we're delivering the affordable units first.
I think everybody's gonna be excited. Awesome. Shayla?
Let's see, I just hired a new grants and data manager who started yesterday, really exciting for me because that takes a lot off my plate, but I'm knee deep in onboarding right now, so it's kind of my main focus. So,
And you had a joint work session.
joint work session with City Council, Charlottesville City Council, about our new plans to build the 2,000 holiday drive and the barrier shelter. I think it was received well. I was surprised that they were actually thinking about moving to the phase one proposal, which was more expensive, but it would have more beds, shelter beds available. So we have the ball in City Council's court right now about next steps for phase three. We have a state of homelessness presentation scheduled for City Council and the city manager on May 4th. That's more about just how homelessness is looking in our region. You're welcome to attend. It is open to the public, May 4th at 4 p.m. in the City Council chambers.
Great. In Albemarle, later today, we will finalize our budget. We had some interesting things going on to get to this evening. At one point, Supervisor Pruitt made a motion to raise our property tax rate by a penny and our personal property by 29 cents. And the math behind his numbers would have got us to our $10 million target if that tax revenue increase was all dedicated to the Affordable Housing Investment Fund in Albemarle. In addition to some other things we would have needed to do. Because it would have yielded us, well, actually, no, that full tax increase would have got us all the way from 5 million to 10 million. The board did not go for that. It failed 3-3 on the property tax. And it failed the same for the 29-cent tax increase. We did propose an increase to the real property, which is the car tax, by 15 cents, and that passed. I thought 4-2. Somebody said it might have been 5-1, but I'm in fact checking on that and don't remember. But that last Wednesday failed. So 3 of us supported that increase with all of it going to affordable housing. That would have got us to the 10 in addition to some other maneuvering we would have had to do. So tonight, last week, we figured out, since the tax rate increase was off the table, of using basically a combination of one-time monies and some ongoing out of reserves, etc., to get the number back to the advertised 7.5 million. And that's the action that we'll take tonight. But an affordable housing investment fund has never really been over 5 million before. So it's still a win in that regard, but this is the closest we've really in Albemarle received to getting that fund up to 10 million. And it's a combination of new ongoing money going in there and new one-time money going in there. So the investment fund will have a little bit more dollars in it than this past year. The other thing related to housing would be, we had also last Wednesday talked about the implementation and the work projects coming out of our comprehensive plan update, AC 44, and how the implementation of all that's going to go. And kind of took some time and made a case last week that affordable housing and economic development should be one issue. They're not separate issues, they're the same issue. And then intertwined. So when we passed the comp plan, we directed staff. So in the comp plan, it says that Housing Albemarle, which is our housing policy needs to be updated every 5 years, so that's not baked into the comp plan. But also baked in, it was an immediate update upon adoption of the comp plan. And then last Wednesday, to me, I think that if you do all the housing outmodel update and all this implementation work is two separate things, that it's not the right approach. So I made my case for how I thought it was intertwined based on what staff did, and frankly, the staff's work's what led me to the thought. So there's entryways in that said, all right, if we're gonna do zoning modernization, if we're gonna do a lot of work around activity centers, that where we're going to put housing matters to all of that. So let's just do the update while we're doing these things and weave them together. So that conversation went, there seemed to be buy-in from the rest of the board, so we'll see how that plays out. And then sounds like there's some projects that are going to, since the comp plan is done now, we've not really seen a whole lot coming into us from a rezoning piece. Since we passed our developer incentives a few years ago, everything that's come before us has been under the old bar, if you would. And the developer incentives passed, and there's still doubt out there about the developer incentives, and there's still maybe misunderstandings about how our developer incentives are designed to work. But we're finally getting things coming through the pipeline that I've seen at the planning commission or those coming through. Some are small, some are going to be big, and some could be like in Albemarle, development area versus rural area is kind of a big deal. So you could see some things that maybe try to press that. So there are some big housing projects that are coming through, and it'll be interesting to see how this board deals with it, because it's a very different board than it was last year. But outside of that, that's what's going on with that. Sweet. Well, look at that. Is there any other business, any other items that we need to address or bring up? I appreciate you all working through the leadership stuff. I think the game plan.
Congratulations, Tim.
And Shayla, thank you, Shayla.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. So we'll adjourn on time. Thank you all so much. See you.
And this is just in the report.
Like 2000.